President Trump will meet with members of the Senate Finance Committee today as he looks to move forward with a budget vote. The passing of this budget is critical to moving tax reform forward, but not all Republicans are on board. Senator Rand Paul reportedly considering a no vote on the budget resolution, calling for spending reforms to Medicare and Medicaid. Watch.
The budget vote to me is a symbol and a guidepost as to what we are as a party and what we stand for. And the people like McCain and Graham, who parade as conservatives but are not really conservative, they need to be called out.
Senator Lindsey Graham heading back, tweeting this, getting more bad info at Rand Paul. Don't screw up tax reform now. You already saved Obamacare by trashing Graham Cassidy, Heller Johnson. Lindsey Graham getting tough. But then President Trump tweeted this morning, saying this: the Democrats will only vote for tax increases. Hopefully all Senate Republicans will vote for the largest tax cuts in U.S. history. Joining me right now is Montana Senator Steve Daines. And Senator, it's good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Where is the Senate on the budget?
Well, we had a good vote yesterday. Every Republican senator who was there voted to move forward. This paves the way for tax reform. But I tell you what, the American people have been very clear. They want Congress to stop bickering and to start acting. We've got to get this passed. I think it's the single most important piece of legislation that we can pass this Congress. And here's why. You look back since 2000, this economy, the American economy has lost 5 million jobs have gone overseas. This brings jobs back to America. We should call this the American Jobs Act. Second, it is a tax cut for the American worker. It is a tax raise, is a tax decrease and a pay raise for the American worker. And third, it grows the economy. Look what's going on with the Dow right now. Busted over 23,000 yesterday. Futures look even better this morning. What's happening here, we've added $5 trillion of wealth to America. And anticipation, the optimism right now of tax reform, I think that's built in right now in the numbers.
Yeah.
We've got to act, and I think we can unleash this economy. And we must, if we want to remain the economic superpower of the world. And when you're the economic superpower, you're also the military superpower. This is critical for us to pass before the end of the year.
Yeah, but I mean, we know the pushback that happened in the Senate around health care. So what's the pushback now within the Senate? I understand the Senate has an issue with eliminating the estate tax, for example. Are things like that going to hold up the tax bill?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, there's going to be some differences. At the end of the day, you've got to step back and say, we must pass this bill. This is the American Jobs Act. This is exactly what this economy needs right now to keep growing, keep moving forward. President Trump, since he took office, now we're seeing numbers approaching 3% GDP growth. This is a significant shift in the right direction. The stakes could not be higher. And so if we have some minor differences, that's part of what we do in Congress. We've got to set those aside, though, and look at the big picture. This is a big chance to step up to the plate, swing the bat hard, and deliver what the American people need right now is a tax cut, which means a pay raise and growing this economy.
So it sounds like you're willing to vote for the tax plan.
I will.
Yeah. What about the SALT? That is the state and local income deduction that, of course, in this plan goes away. Are you open to agree to that?
I am. I think it's actually it's a good idea. And what it does, it allows the states now to compete. The states that have high tax rates now are going to be exposed more because they won't be able to deduct those taxes from their federal returns. Going back to the founding fathers really wanted here was the states to really be the laboratories of democracy. Let the states compete. And I think that is a move in the right direction. It simplifies the code and, again, exposes some of these states that have very high tax rates.
So do you think that you will have 50 votes in the Senate?
You know, I'm optimistic. I really am. I think looking at the vote yesterday, every Republican senator who was here, we had two that were missing. Just one was at a funeral, and Senator Cochran was ill. He should be back this week. But every senator who was there on the Republican side voted to move forward with yesterday's vote. I'm optimistic we're going to get this done, and I think the stakes could be higher. We must get this done. This is must pass. If we don't get it done, frankly, they should send us all home.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, the American people do want this done. But, you know, it feels like the Senate is the place that bills die. I mean, that's why people are not sure what's happening with the Senate. Are there senators that really don't care if this president succeeds or not?
Well, I don't think it's that issue. I really don't. I think there are senators who have very sincere differences on some of these policy issues. But I tell you what, I think we've got to step back and put on the United States jersey here for a moment. Not your personal jersey, but doing what's right for your state and doing what's right for your country. This is a moment in American history that we must act upon. And that is why we got to set aside the minor differences, step back and look at the big picture here of what this means right now for the American worker, for American jobs, for global competitiveness. It's time to give the American worker a pay increase. We can do that by delivering a tax cut.
Yeah, but what about a tax increase for the highest earners? I mean, isn't that what's happening here if you eliminate the state and local deduction, and now there's a conversation about a fourth bracket? Where is that conversation? Does the Senate want a higher bracket, like 44% for the richest Americans?
Yeah, I don't like the idea of raising taxes. And I think we got to come back here and look at, we need to reduce the tax burden right now on American businesses to allow us to be competitive globally. Again, losing 5 million jobs since 2000. This is bringing those jobs back. I tell you what.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the individual rate, Senator. I'm talking about the individual rate in a conversation of having another higher than the 35% rate that's been presented. Yeah,
there'll be a debate about that. But I think it's, one thing is, I led businesses for 28 years in the private sector before coming to Congress. I always said the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And I tell you right now is removing the tax burden and the regulatory burden on American businesses is one way to ensure we create American jobs. Yeah, there'll be some debates about rates on the highest end, but I tell you what, I think what's most important here is reducing that tax burden for American businesses, keeping jobs here in America. But number two, delivering a tax cut for the middle class.
But what about the highest earners? They pay all the tax. The top 10% earners pay 80% of the tax.
I don't like the idea of raising taxes, so I don't think we should be increasing taxes.
So you'll vote no for a fourth bracket then?
I'd be opposed to the idea here of raising taxes on the high end. And it doesn't make any sense.
Real quick, Senator, in terms of paying for this, do you believe, as Steve Mnuchin has said, growth pays for part of this? Because
absolutely, 100%. I tell you, I've been spending a lot of time with thoughtful, credible economists over the last couple of weeks, taking a look at, okay, so if we have a $1.5 trillion reduction in rates overall over the course of the next 10 years, but we bump the GDP growth up to 2.5%, 3%, that more than pays for itself. It actually creates surpluses. We add revenues. And so this comes back to fundamentally put more dollars back into this economy, remove the dollars going back to Washington, D.C., and guess what? I think they'll get spent more wisely. You'll see the economy grow. You'll see tax revenues actually increase. Credible economists virtually everywhere are saying the same thing. Cut rates, increase tax revenues. We will actually see a reduction in deficits. All
right, so you think you're going to get a bill to the president's desk by year end, he'll sign it, and this will be tax polish for 2018?
I do.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Senator, we'll be watching. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Senator Daines there.